Hey guys, in this video I'm gonna introduce you to every single character available in Arknights Endfield. We're gonna take a brief look at every single character in the game, establish what roles they fill and what teams they are actually played in. Furthermore, we're gonna take a deep look into how team building works, and we will have a good understanding after this video when it comes to what the metagame play is, what characters are the best characters in the game, and why. So let's start off by looking at the character Perlica. Before we start off, let me tell you something about team building already. Every single character in this game has an element attached to him, like for example electro, fire, ice and or physical. There are three main roles in this game. There are exceptions, some teams are built a little bit different, but in general the main three roles which every single team consists of are main DPS, support and a role that we call battery. Now what are those three roles all about? The main DPS is obviously here to deal damage, right? You want to get the most amount of damage output out of your main DPS as possible. Then the support character is already something quite specific, because look, every single element here has a debuff that it wants to apply in order for the main DPS to profit from these debuff stacks. How it usually goes is the following. Electro, for example, wants to have a debuff applied to the enemy called electrification. We usually stack this to like 4 stacks, and then we have our main DPS from the electro element consume these 4 stacks of electro to electrification to deal a tremendously high amount of damage. Same for fire, we want to apply burn stacks onto the enemy so that these burn stacks then can be consumed by our main DPS to do damage, right? For ice it's a little bit different, because here we want to apply 3 stacks of ice onto our opponent. We want to then switch to our main DPS character to freeze the opponent, and once the enemy is frozen, our main DPS will deal a tremendously higher amount of damage than usual. So you see, right, the team's objective is to apply ice, freeze the opponent and then have your main DPS go nuts. Same for physical, we apply a debuff here called vulnerable, we stack these vulnerable buffs up and then our main DPS consumes these vulnerable stacks to deal a tremendously high amount of damage. And this is what our support role is here for. You want a support for your element to apply the respective debuffs that your main DPS needs. So your support needs to excel at providing his main DPS with the necessary stacks. Then our battery is something that we call SP recovery. It is called skill point recovery, and as the word battery implies, that character is here to keep our team rolling so that we never run out of steam. Look at it as cooldown reduction. Without a battery in your team, you will suffer from downtime in which you cannot act because you have cooldowns. Now the battery is here to reduce these cooldowns and make it possible for your team to keep rolling and rolling and rolling and never run out of steam and never have downtime, or at least not too much of downtime when it comes to skill rotations. Now that we have established that knowledge, it is now more convenient to look at characters and have a better understanding when it comes to what a character is actually here for. So let's start off by taking a look at the electro element characters, starting off with Perlica. She is here as a 5-star character. You will obtain her for free, and she is the best debuffer, the best support character I should say, when it comes to the electro element, and therefore she is a must play whenever you would play an electro type team. She's the best electrification debuffer in the entire game, and therefore, needless to explain, a must have and a must play in electro archetypes or electro element teams. Other electro type characters are Arknights, and here you can see he is a character that excels at SP recovery, so he's the battery for our team. he is very depending on Perlica because his kit or her kit only works when electrification is consistently applied and very much applied. So Arknight would be a character that is unplayable with Perlica, but as I already explained, that applies to pretty much every single electro type character in the game. We need Perlica. Arknight is a very good battery for these electro type teams though. Next up we have Aviana. That is a main DPS character. That is the best electro element type character in the entire game, and therefore if you play an electro element team, Aviana is your main DPS, no question about it whatsoever. Then we have Antal. He amplifies electro damage. He would increase the damage output from electro element characters. He is a good replacement in case you would miss any character, like for example Gilberta. That's a different character we're gonna talk about later. Or yeah, if you lack, for example, if you don't have access to other characters, like for example Arknight or anything, Antal could, if you really wanted to, if you would really need to, fill the spot, but it is not highly recommended to play this character at all, as we will find out later when we talk about actual teams and how these teams should be played. Then we can move on to our fire element characters. Here we have our rate up character, Leviathan. She is not only the best main DPS for the fire element, she has the highest AoE damage output in the entire game, making her of course one of the best characters in the entire game, which should be obvious because she is our rate up character, right? She is, of course, as it is with pretty much every single character in this game, like almost. There are characters that are versatile, but Leviathan can only be played in fire teams, as she needs a support that applies those fire stacks. Otherwise you would miss out on so much damage, and you should not play Leviathan in the first place. And that leads us to Wolfguard, because Wolfguard is the best character in the game to be played together with Leviathan, as he's the best character in the game to apply these stacks of fires. He also boosts fire damage in general, so he's a match made in heaven to be played together with our limited character, or our rate up character I should say, Leviathan. Then of course this team, you guessed it, needs a battery, and this is where Akekuri comes in, because she is the best battery, or yeah, I should even say the only possible battery for the fire element archetype, and therefore she's a must play also in this team. These three, they go together. They are pretty much our only fire element characters in the game. There's one more, we will talk about her later. But yeah, there we go. Akekuri here is a little bit special because she is not bound to be specifically played in fire teams. That is by far her best in slot, but she can also act as a battery for other teams actually. Okay, now we can move on to physical characters, and here we have a whole bunch of characters available actually. First of all, we have our main character. We gain access to him for free. That's what we're gonna start the game off with. He is called Administrator, and he is the best physical DPS character in the entire game. He, of course, keep in mind, needs to be played together with other characters that apply vulnerable, right? I think I have mentioned that enough by now. Then we can move on to the character Chen Qingyu. She's gonna be the best support in the entire game for the physical archetype kind of team. She's the best vulnerable player in the entire game, and that's why obviously she is the best support for that physical team, together with our main character here called Administrator. So these two are match made in heaven and want to be played together. And what makes this even better is that Qingyu is also a free character, so you don't need to invest any resources right there. Then we have Catcher, who's also a physical character. He fills the role tank, and tanks are not doing too hot in the metagame, especially not in the early game. And to top that off, he is quite a bad character. Among all of the characters that are tanks, he is not crushing it, and this is a character that you should not invest in and ignore. It's one of the worst characters in the entire game. We have Da Pan, this panda right here. He is a fill-in for physical teams. He can act as a support or as the DPS, but it is also not very highly recommended to play him, as he is outclassed, heavily outclassed in fact, by other characters. He does not really have anything that he would excel at, so yeah, better ignore this guy as well if you can somehow do so. Then we have Pogranichnik, and he's gonna be a best in slot for a physical team. So you would play him together with Chen or another character that I'm gonna mention later, and the main character. So that is gonna be the best physical team in the game. And there you go. He's part of the beginner banner, so getting him would, under specific circumstances, be bad choice, I should say, because if you just get him, you have two other free-to-play characters that you obtain for free to play together with him to build one of the best teams in the game right out of the gate. So keep that in mind. He has a very high damage output himself, and he also increases the physical damage taken onto your opponents, which is, yeah, needless to explain, of course, super valuable. Then we have another best in slot for this physical team, actually, with Li Feng. This is a he, is also part of the beginner banner, and he's also a very good pairing for our main character, Administrator. Now, he applies a little bit less of vulnerable stacks than Chen would, but he deals much more damage than Chen would. So you don't have to have him necessarily, as you have the free-to-play option with Chen, but if you wanna go for like true power and the true best in slot team, you would also go for Li Feng, but that will lead to you having to go for two characters on the standard and beginner banner with Pogranichnik and Li Feng. So I would recommend to skip Li Feng and use the free character Chen Qingyu instead of Li Feng. Even though it's the best in slot, right? Still, Chen applies more vulnerable stacks, and that is what the support rule is all about in the end. The additional damage here is nice, but not very necessary. Alright, let's talk about the last fire element character that I haven't mentioned yet. That is also a tank, and that is Amber. She's also gonna be part of the beginner banner, but this is the worst character that you could possibly go for when it comes to the beginner banner. So in case you would pull her, you should like seriously reroll your account, because as I said, like tanks, they don't necessarily perform very well in the meta, especially not early on in the game. So she can only be played in physical teams. She is a tank. Tanks in this game, by the way, they have healing abilities and kind of support abilities, but they excel at blocking attacks and not taking a lot of damage and keeping your team alive. But yeah, like, it is not really recommended to go for her. If you pull her on the beginner banner, reroll your account. Then we can move on to the element Ice, and we're gonna start off with Estella. She's a very interesting character, because you should not play her. Her best in slot is not in ice teams, but actually it is in physical teams, because look, she applies freeze, but she wants to break that freeze to apply vulnerable, which is then good for the physical teams because they want to apply vulnerable. She's a little bit slow, of course, applying vulnerable, because you need to freeze the opponent with her alone then first. And that's why she is outclassed and not recommended, but nonetheless, don't sleep too much on her. She's a good free-to-play option for physical teams. Next up, we have to talk about Yvonne, and that is a main DPS character. that is not gonna be available in the game right out of the gate. She will be part of a new banner, I think, don't quote me on that, but yeah, in the span of like 1 or 1.5 months, Yvonne is gonna be released, and she is gonna be the best main DPS in the entire game when it comes to single target damage. She can only be played in ice teams because how she works is the following: you need teammates that apply freeze. 3 freeze stacks to be precise. Then you're gonna switch to Yvonne, you're gonna freeze your opponent with Yvonne, and then you have the highest single target damage output with her in the entire game. So it is very, very recommended to go and get her teammates early on in the game, to then, whenever Yvonne would release, pull for her to establish one of, if not the best teams in the entire game. So keep that in mind. She is also very, very self-sustainable, so it makes her a little bit versatile. She applies those ice stacks and she can freeze the opponent all by herself, right? But yeah, of course, having the specific teammates for her that help her with that would min-max her damage output. But Yvonne is probably the best character in the entire game the moment she releases. So yeah, get her teammates, save up for Yvonne, and then establish their team. That is what I would highly recommend to you. Then next up we have Elish. He is a battery for the ice team. He can only be played in ice teams. He can instantly freeze an opponent without having to apply any ice stacks beforehand, which is quite insane. So definitely get your hands onto Elish if you somehow can. Then we have Snowshine. That is going to be the tank for the ice element. She is special because she has the best single target heal in the entire game. She blocks attacks and she helps freezing. So this is the #1 best tank in the entire game. So if your ice team would need a little bit of survivability, then Snowshine is absolutely fantastic there. But yeah, she, spoiler alert a little bit, she's not gonna be the best in slot in the ice team per se, but a very good option to make your ice team more versatile for content in which you would need more survivability. Don't sleep on Snowshine. Next up we have Shaihe. She's a support. She heals, she helps with freezing, she can only be played in ice teams, she lowers the ice defense of your opponents, which is quite interesting, and therefore she is a very good option for free-to-play players. She can be slotted into your ice team easily and would do just fine in case you would miss a better character like the characters that I mentioned beforehand. So good character, but not necessary and kind of outclassed in what she actually does. Last but not least, when we talk about the ice element, we have Last Ride. She's also gonna be part of the beginner banner. Keep that in mind. She, acts as can act as a main DPS. She will be the main DPS for the ice element as long as Yvonne has not released yet. But then the very cool thing about her is that she stays as the best in slot for the ice element team even at the moment that Yvonne released. You play the ice element team with 2 main DPS characters. That is because while Last Ride has a significantly high amount of damage output, that's why she's the main DPS, but she also applies a very, very high amount of ice stacks very, very fast and very, very consistently. So that's why you can use her as the support slot for the team and play it with double main DPS, Yvonne, Last Right, and then either a support, but I would prefer actually to put a battery into this team. So Last Right turns from the main DPS into a support once Yvonne is released, and she will stay as the best in slot for this ice element kind of team. So a super valuable character to actually go for. Alright, now let's talk about the nature element type of characters in this game, starting off with this character right here called Fluorite. Now this is a very bad, and not necessarily bad, but very niche character. She is outclassed in every single team, but she can be put into every single team as the battery, because she can apply stacks for every single thing. She can apply ice stacks, fire stacks, you name it. She can do everything, but she doesn't excel at anything. So no matter what you put her in as a support or as a battery in a team, that works, but is quite bad, and she's heavily outclassed. But in case you would not be able to establish a team and you need either a support or even a battery, I would prefer her as a support actually. You can do it with Fluorite, but yeah, if you can somehow prevent it, you would be better off preventing it. So don't play and invest Fluorite. And yeah, the same kind of thing goes for kind of every single character in this game with the nature element. Now, Gilberta is a little bit more cracked than Fluorite though. She is played in elemental teams. She can apply every single elemental stacks, just as Fluorite does, but Gilberta does it better. She's very versatile, she can fit into every single elemental team. She cannot be played in physical teams, while Fluorite could do that. Then the best in slot, or yeah, where Gilberta would be best played in, I should say, is electro teams. That would be her true best spot, but she's also very good in ice teams. Then the last character we have to talk about is Ardelia. She is also gonna be part of the beginner banner and an absolute powerhouse. She's the best healer in the game. She amplifies both elemental and physical damage output. She's the most versatile character in the game, fits into every single team quite nicely. She's very good and nothing to sneeze at. Her best use is in fire teams, because she applies corrosion, which Leviathan profits from. The main DPS for the fire element profits from characters that apply corrosion, and that is something that Ardelia does very well. So if you want to use Ardelia to her maximum amount of efficiency, you play her with the rate up character Leviathan together. Alright, here's a little bit of a side note that I want to mention, and that is, kinda funny, at least from my perspective. You see this little sheep that she has there, and this looks extremely similar to the Pokemon Wooloo, and therefore get ready for Nintendo suing the shit out of this character and of Arknights Endfield. That is just a side note that I thought is kind of hilarious. Okay, now let's take a little bit of a deeper look into team building and see what the best teams in the entire game will look like. Here you have your main character with Administrator. You're gonna use him to build a very strong physical team around him. And the way you're gonna do this is you pull for Prograchnachnik on the beginner banner, if you please. And to round this team off with Administrator and Prograchnachnik, you're gonna play Lefeng. Now there's a little bit of an issue, because you would have to pull for two characters from either the beginner banner or the standard banner to make this team work. That is a little bit inconvenient, but don't you worry, we have another very good character as a free-to-play available to us without investing any of our resources, with Chen Qing Yu. So you can use her to replace Li Feng. Of all things, it is better than to replace Pograchnachnik, because by replacing Pograchnachnik you would lose a little bit of too much damage output that this team has. So better go for the replacement for Li Feng and play the team like this, and voila, that is gonna be the best physical team in the entire game, and therefore it is gonna be meta, very strong, and carrying you through content. The Electro lineup will look like this. We have Aviverna as our main DPS. We have the must-have Perlica, which we receive for free, so don't worry about that for a second. And as our battery, we should use Arknight, but he's replaceable with Gilberta. No matter who you put in here, be it Arknight or Gilberta, both will work perfectly fine. And there we go. This is gonna be one of the best teams in the game as well. Especially, this is also, just as the physical team that I presented, very good for free-to-play players, because we get Perlica for free. This fire team right here will be the best team in the entire game on release. It is then gonna be moved to second place later on, but yeah, we will talk about that in just a second a little bit more. We have our main DPS here with our rate up character Leviathan. The best support in the entire game for this Leviathan kind of character is Wolfguard, and our battery to glue it all together is gonna be Ake Kuri. I would not recommend to make any replacements here. And to end it off, we have our ice element team here, consisting of Yvonne whenever she releases, Last Ride, and Alish. Now you will not be able to play this team right out of the gate on release, because Yvonne will not be here. So that means we move Last Ride to the main DPS kind of slot, and then I would recommend to fill the missing slot with Snowshine, or you could even do this with Gilberta as well. You could remove Snowshine and put in Gilberta. So as long as Yvonne is not released, we have a little bit of options. But yeah, the best in slot team and the best team in the entire game once Yvonne releases is gonna be this team right here on your screen. And that's about it, guys. In my next video, I will dedicate it towards specifically who should you pull for, why should you pull for the characters, what is most recommended for free-to-plays, what is most recommended for pay-to-wins, why and when should you pull for the characters that you should pull for. But that's it for this video, guys. I hope this was fun and informative. If you like Arknights Endfield content and want to see and hear more from me, please consider leaving a follow on my channel. I will have a daily upload schedule for Arknights Endfield, and I'm gonna play this game a whole lot and cover every single aspect of this game once it is released. So yeah, please leave a follow, I would really appreciate it. But until next time, take care of yourselves, have a great day, peace.